Hi, my name is Eric DeVries, dental CPA and founder of ForSaleByDentist.com. Today we're going to take a few minutes in our short summary video and talk about purchase price and how it's set in a transition. So there's lots of different ways. There's three ways that are seen more often than not. So we'll tackle those today in our summary. The first one is the percentage of gross collections. You hear this all the time. Typically, we see anywhere between 70 and 80% as a rule of thumb, but rule of thumbs are horrible. Let me explain how this works. If you had $1 million practice and you were going to pay 70 cents on the dollar, that's $700,000. But that first practice, the $1 million practice, would net the doctor $400,000 a year, and one just like it would net the doctor $500,000 a year. You wouldn't pay the same for both of those practices, correct? It's simple math. So you can see quickly how you cannot really use that as a driving factor, but it's still done. Usually it's done in hindsight. I can tell you a couple other little tricks. Banks will finance up to 90 cents on the dollar, okay? So on the high side with bank financing, you'll see a deal go through somewhere around 90 cents with no seller financing on that deal. But again, as a rule, somewhere between 70 and 80 cents on an average we see, and it goes up and down benchmarks, how new it is, the location, the costs, the equipment. There's so many different deciding factors in there, but that's the first rule of thumb, is a percentage of collections. The next is if the doctor were to stay in the practice, meaning an associate comes in, they purchase, and they're going to do the work. Let's stick with the general practice, $1 million. If the overhead, the employee costs, labs, supplies, rent, and so on, equal, let's say, 60%, okay? So that means $400,000 would be left over. The doctor is going to work it, so they would probably get 30% of their production, let's say, but you minus out the hygiene, so they're at about 25% of total. So 60% overhead, 25% goes to the doctor, and then that 15% would be the profit, okay, of them just owning that. So that's 40%, okay? We sometimes see about 2 years is what the doctor is willing to pay. So on a 2 years, if they were to get $400,000 on this example, $800,000 might be a purchase price on that. Now notice that's kind of on the range of 70 to 80 cents on the dollar, but again, that's if there's 15% profit in there. So you'd have to look to see what the doctor gets. I want to stay high level on these, but so the second method that I'm talking about is basically doctor benefit, is what we like to call that. Cash flow is another way to look at that too, okay? And a 2-time mark is what we see generally. These are all big picture, but I'm just letting you know how these things work. And the third way we see is something based off of EBITDA, earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. It's a fancy accounting word, but basically it means net profit. This is done by maybe groups or corporate or DSOs where they're not going to work the doctor chair side. So they're looking at return on investment, which is a much smaller number. Typically, they like to see anywhere between 10 and 20% on an EBITDA, and they'll pay anywhere between 3 and 5, maybe 6 times a markup in general, we're talking. So what does that mean? So if you had a 20% EBITDA, okay, and a 5 times markup, that would be 100%. A 15% EBITDA at a 5-time market would be 75 cents. So you see that 75 to 100 on the dollar there. So again, this is just a summary level. I'm trying to paint a picture of how practice purchase prices get set. The first one is very simple. It's a percentage of collections. The second one is more of a doctor benefit cash flow hybrid where the doctor stays and works. And the third one is more of an EBITDA return on investment type strategy. We always recommend that you take your time with these decisions. And then again, this is a high-level explanatory video. If you'd like to see more in-depth tutorials, you can find them on our website, the number 4, ForSaleByDentist.com, underneath our Learning Center. Hopefully that helps, and have a wonderful day.